So welcome everyone who's here live and everyone who catches the replay on to this week's live. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about listening to one's body and healing on a spiritual level. And by the way, if we've never met, I'm Katherine, Breast Cancer Remission Coach, and I help breast cancer survivors after treatment discover their after cancer identities through diet and lifestyle changes, so they can lessen the fear of recurrence and live empowered and hopeful lives. And as mentioned, we are going to focus today on energy, emotions, and understanding your body's language. I'm so honored to have spiritual wellness coach Candace Cormier here with us to go deeper into that. Candace has been on a wellness journey for the past 9 years after a serious accident literally transformed her life from the inside out. After the physical recovery, the emotional and spiritual transformation began. And we all kind of know a little bit about that, right? And it has been through this journey that the biggest and most profound changes have occurred. Taking the time to understand her body's own unique and personal language, she now lives symptom-free and is excited to share her journey with us today. So welcome, Candace.
Thank you.
So honored to have you here. And so why don't you share a little bit about your journey with us?
Yeah, the journey is really cool, actually. And it's nice to be talking about this 10, 15 years after, everything started. So in my late 30s, 38, 39, I was coming out of a depression. And I've been in a depressive state for about 10 years. And I started asking questions like, why am I going through this? How can I get help aside from the conventional medical?
Yeah,
because that's where I was. And I was just questioning life. And that started 38, 39. So from that age until about 42, it was kind of, I went to a yoga class here and there.
Yeah.
Went to a meditation, kind of like I didn't know where I fit, didn't know what I was doing, was trying to make the steps. And, you got to be careful for what you ask for, because at 41 through to 42, I was seeking change and I wanted change badly. Like really, I was like, okay, something's got to happen, and something did.
Yeah.
So at 1 month shy of my 43rd birthday, I hit a tree head on a snow machine and was in ICU for 5 days.
Oh my God.
So there was the pivot. The pivot started right there, but I didn't understand the depth to the emotional or spiritual connection. I knew something changed, but I didn't understand it. But it was the physical. So I physically had to get better from that event. And the recovery took, I would say, about close to a year.
Yeah.
But that was, my liver was damaged. So internal organ damage. I had shattered my right arm, and I'm right hand dominant. So there was recovery, and there was PTSD, of course, all kinds of stuff that happens with that. But that's where it started.
Yes.
And you know what? I would never have thought in a million years that I would be where I am today. Yes. Because my husband noticed about 6 months after the accident, without really my awareness, he said to me, "You've changed."
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, "Well, what do you mean I've changed?" And he said, "You changed." So he saw it in me, and that I'll never forget that. So the journey it's been amazing to be here and talking about it is like super cool. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, it's amazing how these traumatic experiences in our life can have such a, dare I say, positive effect, because, and unless we're really forced out of our comfort zones, we're not going to change. So it's that thing that pushes you over the edge. So that's just fantastic. So what would you say would be the biggest lesson or lessons that you learned throughout this journey?
There's many. We can be here for a while. But I think, there's probably two. The first one would be not to take myself so seriously.
Yeah.
I was very rigid in my thinking, in my beliefs, very rigid, and took myself very seriously. So when I went to my first yoga class, and this happens to a lot of people because I worked in a yoga studio as well, and you see the fear that people have when they've never done something. Now everybody's fear is different and they think differently. I was rigid. Like, I'm not saying I didn't do the poses. I did the poses, but I was rigid in like do I belong here? And I was so scared about being judged.
Mm-hmm.
But that was everywhere in my life. So I was very, very rigid. And that is something that no longer exists. I'm not as rigid. I'm very fluid in my life. I'm very open to experiencing many things without judgment. So that is a big one. The
Mm-hmm.
other one is honestly understanding what self-love was. And that was a really elusive term. It's thrown around all over. You know that.
Totally, it's overused. Yeah.
You hear self-love all over the place. And when I first heard it back, like, I did hear it before my accident, but after my accident, it kind of seemed to be coming up a little bit more, which is usually an indication that we need to take notice of something.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I could not have given you a definition back then of what self-love was.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Louise Hay, I read her books.
Mm-hmm.
And, doing affirmations was cool in the beginning, but I felt like a fraud to myself.
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love myself and I'm a good person. It felt awkward.
Yeah.
It felt untrue. It felt icky.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just did not land.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I've figured out, and this has probably been the last 2 years specifically. So as you see, this journey is ever growing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen and then you stop. It evolves and you grow with it. So really in the last 2 years, my definition of self-love is now accepting all parts of us.
Yeah.
So if we feel unworthy, if we have no confidence, if we feel fearful, if we feel shameful, if we feel guilty,
Mm-hmm.
that makes up who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And self-love to me means loving those parts of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, not getting deep and heavy here, but it goes back down to childhood. You know what I mean? And we have to unpackage and undo all of those things in order to find out why we have self-worth issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then that ties into the beliefs of how we see ourselves and how we show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say show up in the world, I mean how we show up for ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and for other people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So really that self-love component is, if we're feeling guilty, shameful, honor what that is.
Yes.
And tell yourself, I love you. I'm afraid right now. I don't know why I'm feeling afraid. I love you. That is self-love.
Yes.
So that's an understanding that has come forth over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first started, I love myself, to say I love you and I care for you and you're a good person, but like I said, it just didn't stick.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't buying it.
I wasn't. And that's the thing. And they say fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with that, kind of don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did, you learn and I was open. And I think this whole thing of healing from the inside out is being curious
Exactly.
about the journey and
Mhm.
taking ourselves out of our box that we stay in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love how
And
you
I was like boxed in real bad. Like I was like tucked right in, like paper on top of me. Like, it's the whole.
I just imagine this big, like little, when you see on the movies, they've got an animal and they've captured it in the wild and they've got this big cage with the big padlocks on it. That's what I felt like in the past. It's just like so trapped in who you thought you were that you weren't willing to open up, and like it was so hard to open up. And I guess my cancer journey cracked open the cage. I had no choice, like you had to. But I love how you talked about unpacking what's beneath the surface. I just had this vision of the iceberg analogy of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Like there's so much below, and that's what it's like. You've got your healing journey on the top. You've got your physical, treatment, whatever, hospitalization, ICU, that's on the top, that's all visible. But there's all this great big pile of stuff that's down below. That's just baggage that you've been carrying since a long time ago that needs to be dealt with in order to enable this healing journey to be successful.
Right. So, and we don't look at that like ever, like we know we are afraid and we know we get irritated and angry. We know all that, but we don't understand why it's being triggered.
Yes.
And, when I started this healing journey I could say, 2009, but really from 2013, you grow into the awareness.
Yes. Yeah. It takes time. It takes time. It's,
Right.
it's not like you wake up one day and say, oh, I'm enlightened. like, and
Yeah,
the,
and
the whole 9 yards.
yes, no. I would never even use the word enlightened for myself. I would just say like a greater, like it's really nice to have awareness and that capability of understanding where I'm coming from at an emotional level.
Mhm.
So if I get irritated or angry or sad or scared, I can now look at it from a different perspective, like a different lens.
Mhm.
And I'm going, oh, it's because somebody said something and that made me feel like I was 5 again
Yes.
or whatever. So really look, and without lashing out at the other person.
Yeah. It gives you the chance to respond as opposed to reacting. So you're responding
Absolutely.
from a place of awareness as opposed to,
Yes.
oh my God, I'm going to rip her head off. Yeah, like that's good.
You
It keeps
know?
you out of jail too. Now it's good.
Yeah, it's a much better response. Those are the two biggest things I think really
Yeah.
is that letting go of the rigid thinking and beliefs and really honoring the self-love from, a perspective of awareness.
That's fantastic. And that's what we need. And that's why we need to step outside of conventional, because there's a whole body here that needs healing. It's not just, in our case, it's not just our
Right.
breath. In your case,
Yeah.
it wasn't, your liver, and it was like everything. And it's
Right.
all interconnected. We're so
Yeah.
interconnected, it's not even funny.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what energy, emotions, nutrition is.
So we know that our body has cellular memory, right? Like we've heard this again and again. It seemed elusive to me as I went on my journey through holistic nutrition and then energy healing. I started to kind of see that there was a connection, right? Between, like, nutritionally, we want to support our body. But I started to recognize through different, like it was in my course, energy, metaphysical healing. So I started to understand my body a little bit better through that. So along with the cellular memory, our organs hold energy. And that energy, it gets triggered through our emotions, right? So if there's anything going on with the gallbladder, the energy is sitting there, and then all of a sudden that emotion comes in and bam, it is activated. So it gets stored and it gets stuck and stagnant. So I am the queen of gallbladder issues. So you know what? My gallbladder was probably triggered, with emotional, of course. Growing up, it was in the 70s and 80s, we ate like crap. So over the years, all this crap was entering my body, and that was my weak link. We all have a weak link somewhere. So mine is my liver and gallbladder. So 31, I ended up having some really bad gallbladder attacks. I didn't know it was gallbladder at the time. Went to the hospital because I was so sick, and I had sludge, really thick sludge in my gallbladder. So they said my enzymes in my liver and pancreas were right off the charts. Basically, I was slowly, poisoning myself.
Yes.
So they got the gallbladder out within a week because it was so toxic. But here's the magical part of it all, was that I had gallbladder attacks for 10 to 11 years post-surgery.
Really? Interesting.
So you go to clinics, you go to doctors, and you're like, hey, like this keeps happening. And they counter that with, hey, it can't be.
Yes, you're crazy. It's in your mind.
You're crazy. Like, they're not saying you're crazy, but they're really implying that it cannot happen. Yeah. And in and out and in and out and in and out. And I don't remember specifically, but it was probably one of the last few times I ever went to see the doctor about my gallbladder, fake gallbladder attacks.
Yeah.
And he just said, no, like it can't happen. And I remember sitting in my car crying.
Yeah.
And going, okay, if somebody can lose a limb and feel the phantom limb, how is this any different? Right. And then thinking in my head, they never gave me any guidance as to what to do when the organ was removed.
Yeah.
So
like there's no purpose.
Like there was no purpose. They never told me anything. And I remember thinking, that's really odd, like, but I left it.
Yes.
Right. And it is what it is. Now, at the age of 42, I happened to be in the Dominican on my birthday and was with a girlfriend, had talked to my husband, one night while I was there, we got into a bit of an argument. And a half hour after our talk, I went into a severe gallbladder attack. And I thought to myself, I need to remember this. I don't know why I know I need to remember this, but I'm going to need to remember this because this was not related to food.
Yeah.
So it was not because I ate KFC or a burger. It was,
Yeah.
So then a year later, I had my accident, and then that started the journey. So after my accident, I started studying nutrition, and I was doing it for fun because I had to heal.
Yes.
And I was really bored, and I thought, oh, well, may as well do something. And somebody planted the seed about nutrition, like, a year earlier. So I thought, oh, why not?
Yeah.
But it was in the first 6 months of that program that I realized the energy and emotion that sits in the gallbladder. And it's irritation or frustration. Well, oh my God, I wear the crown for that. So like I seriously wore the crown. So I went, oh my God, that made so much sense. And I almost felt like I understood one part of my issue with my gallbladder. Like I almost like somebody opened a door and there was a little bit of a light that came in, and I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. So I read up on the emotion that sits in the gallbladder and the foods. So straight out, we know that holistic nutritionists talk about, because I'm one of them, eating good, healthy foods. But there's specific foods that we should remove from our diet when it's related to a specific organ that happens to be our weak link. Gallbladder, chocolate, cheese, and milk. Are you for real?
Yes. No, not the chocolate.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? I was so devastated by this, but I wanted to heal. So I did eliminate that. And I supported my journey through the healing with acupuncture and different things to strengthen the organ that wasn't there. So I was like, okay, but now it's close to the liver. So the liver, hey, they're neighbors. Like, hey, you're grumpy and I'm irritated, so there you go. So the energy and emotion that sits in the liver is anger.
Yes.
So again, by extracting, and it's the same food choices, right? By extracting those bad food choices, I strengthened my liver. So that is where this all came from. And so I incorporated green juicing, dandelion root tea. And I have to say, you know what? It hasn't been easy.
No,
you're studying nutrition. You're coming out of an accident, you're doing whatever you're doing. And I'm sorry, but dandelion root tea is not, great tasting.
Yes. Like me and my wheatgrass. Whoa.
Right?
Terrible,
It's
but
just
fantastic. I'm mowing on the front lawn.
It's not an easy journey, and I just didn't like it, but I did it because I knew there was a benefit.
Yes.
And I wanted to feel better. And I gave myself the space to see what it would look like. So it wasn't always a win. I can't say I was hardcore, do this 24/7, but I gave myself the space in my life that I never gave myself before. And so 2014, like that year after my accident, is when I finally cleared the energy in that region. Yeah. And I have not had a gallbladder attack since 2013, end of 2013. So we're going almost 9 years.
Yeah, that's just absolutely amazing. And it's funny how, like as fantastic as modern medicine is, how it just stops short.
Right.
Actually fixing or it doesn't get to the root cause. So if the root cause hasn't been taken care of, there's a good chance, as in your case, where you have recurring symptoms, even though modern medicine said, no, we got it, we took care of it, this shouldn't be happening anymore. So, and that you listen to yourself, which is huge. Like you really have to be your own proactive.
Well, you have to be your own advocate, but you have to listen to that inner voice instead of thinking, no, that's wrong. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah. No.
Like there's no wrong answer. And this is where we have to trust. So if we're curious and we're like, oh, I heard something about 5 years ago about this, being curious enough to say, what was it? And can it help me? because there's been many things that I tried that flopped. Right. But I listened to this part, and it's been an amazing journey. I mean, to have phantom gallbladder attacks, more probably due to emotional triggers versus food triggers.
Yes.
That for 12 years, this is a testament, almost 9 years of none, like zero. If I even had one, I would tell you I've had none.
Yes. Yes.
So that energy is, I'm not saying I don't get irritated or frustrated or angry, but what I'm saying is the energy that was there and tucked away for so many years, that energy is gone. So if I'm angry, upset, frustrated, it goes through quicker.
Yes.
It doesn't get stuck.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't get bottlenecked in something
Right.
that's already an issue. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just, that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So what's the reason your self-care is so important to you today?
Because I never did it my entire life. And now I know what it is. Right. So my self-care is really just honoring where I am in the day. So that doesn't mean it's all like, roses and, fuzziness. It really is. Some days I meditate. Some days I read stuff that's inspirational, but I definitely start my day with 1 hour of some type of grounding or just being with myself. And it looks different every day. I don't hold myself to, I got to meditate for 1 hour. I don't have the span to do that, but you know what I mean? Like, and just honoring where I am. So if I'm having an emotional day, I honor what that is. So for me, that's my self-care, and saying, you know what? I'm angry today. And why am I angry? I might not know, but that's okay. So honoring all that, because I'm a whole person.
Yes.
So self-care is huge, so that like what I put in my body, I don't eat perfect. I'm about a 60-40. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, nobody's going to mess with my chocolate cake. So although I had to take it out back in the day.
Yeah. In moderation,
In moderation. And this is, and I felt guilty for so many years after my accident, having cake or having something that wasn't good for my body, because I felt ashamed. Like, what am I doing? I have to treat my body better than this.
Yes.
But that was, again, my rigidness, right, that I referenced. So over the last, I would say, 3 years, I've slowly let that go. And you know what? It's mindset. If I want a chocolate cake, no problem. If I want to have a burger, no problem. I'm not going to feel guilty, because the guilty induces the negative feelings.
It's the feelings. The feelings are
right.
Thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions, and actions create results.
Right. So I honor where that is. And you know what? 60% of the time I eat really good. 40% of the time I don't. And I mean, maybe 3 times a year, it could be reversed. Where I'm eating 60% really bad. I've fallen off the tracks. I'm not meditating. I'm not exercising. And it's all a jumbled mess.
It happens.
But it's cool, because now I don't judge. And I see it as part of the journey. So self-care is basically what we make it without having to be boxed into an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all so very different. You can't be boxed into an idea. So for me to tell someone to follow what I do every day is completely unfounded, because it's not going to work for them. It's going to frustrate them, and they're probably going to fall off the wagon. So, you do require a lot of flexibility. Like I know for me, self-care, like I do the same thing. I try and do something every morning, but it's not going to look the same every morning, because some days I'm more tired than others, but I am doing something, sometimes it's half-assed, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
So, all we can do is know the principles that we need to follow, and we do our best. As long as you do your best, you're going to see results, like you absolutely will.
Yeah.
And honoring feelings is probably the first step.
The first thing. Yeah, absolutely.
In any kind of healing journey. So what would you say are your 5 top tips for self-care? Like where would you go with that?
I think, you know what, honestly, I think the first one would be breathing. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but really 90% of the time we're breathing very shallow.
Yes.
And when we're in fear mode or stress mode, like we're in traffic on the 401 and we're trying to get to work, or the boss yells at us, or we got 10 emails coming in, 5 phone calls coming in, that's stress. And we breathe shallow. So we really need to give ourselves that chance of just connecting with our breath. And when I started this, it was like probably my yoga class before my accident. A yoga teacher said, this is how you should breathe to ground and help just calm the nervous system down. And it was so simple. It was literally taking a slow breath in to say, and counting to whatever you could count to, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And at the top, you would hold it for a count of 2, 3, 4, 5. And then slowly letting it out to a count of 8 or 9, because as I found out, you can get more air out than you can in. And it was in that I was like, so breathing doesn't have to be difficult.
No.
Like we don't have to sit here for 20 minutes and do breath work. We can sit here and do it in our car. So breathing is number one because it's so simple to do. Connect with your breath. Just take those nice deep cleansing breaths in. Quietness, stillness, also known as meditation.
Yes.
I don't necessarily like the word meditation because to me, when I was going through it, it seemed elusive. It seemed like I couldn't capture the essence of meditation. And again, went into comparison mode with other people that we see out there. And I'm not one to sit still and meditate for hours. So for me, I bring it down to quietness or stillness, that we can find that at least 10 to 15 minutes in our day. And if that means listening to affirmations on YouTube, or if that means listening to singing bowls on YouTube, or just flute music or something, quiet the mind without putting a label on it of meditating.
Yes.
I think labels, even in a healthy perspective, can still trigger our beliefs that we are boxed in.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we don't want to do it. The other one would be honoring all your feelings, emotions, which we just talked about. So if you're really having a crappy day, own it. I'm having a crappy day.
Yeah, exactly.
Acknowledge it. High five yourself for acknowledging that you're having a crappy day and you feel angry. All right. And say it out loud, because the energy of saying it out loud gets it out.
Yeah, you're opening the gate and it can flow.
Right.
You know?
Right. So like if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, yo, Candace, you're having a bad day. Okay, we're angry. Cool. Let's get through this. And it's a different place than sitting in here. Right. So that is really important. And then being kind to ourselves is the other tip when we're having a bad day. So if we're on a journey of like, modifying our lifestyle or changing the way we eat, and we don't fulfill that, whatever we think has to be fulfilled in a day or a week. So like, be kind. It's not a big deal. Life got in the way. You fell off the track. I do it all the time because you do too, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
It's and just be like, cool. So that's about, again, ties into honoring your emotions. Because something helped you fall off the track. So
exactly. There's a reason for everything.
And being kind to yourself. And because if that was your 5-year-old child, you'd be like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We have to do the same for ourselves.
You wouldn't say to your kid, you're so stupid.
Right?
Yeah. So I shelled my negative Sybil. I say, Sybil, go away. Thanks for sharing. Go away. That's my negative self-talk is Sybil. So
put it away. Put it away.
We're good.
I love it. And the final point for self-care would be filling up your soul cup. That is so important. Now we've heard this by taking walks and listening to music, but filling it up, that could mean a really good conversation with a friend. That could mean, for me, like seriously, cuddling with my golden doodle. Like there is nothing that fills that up. It doesn't have to be, again, boxed in. Filling it up, what makes your heart like full? And that rejuvenates you and it makes you feel like you're honoring yourself. I'm not a journaler. So for me to sit down and journal, it doesn't fill up my soul cup.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody's different, but finding that part of your soul that touches you and makes you feel good. So those are my 5 tips.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I know that I journal, and I would say that I have days where I'm journaling and it's such a bad day that I find that there's a lot of negative coming out, but sometimes I don't, sometimes it's fantastic and other times it's just like, I don't know, I think it just stirred things up, but maybe because there was so much in there. So that's absolutely true. You have to find out whatever is going to work for you.
Absolutely.
And especially when it comes to breast cancer, like in terms of filling your soul cup, like I always come back to the heart chakra, because that was something
Always.
that, when I when I was in treatment, I was going through school at the same time. So I was actually learning these, the stuff and boom, like I keyed right in on the heart chakra, because, you're
Right.
putting everyone else first. You're doing this and, you really do have to fill that soul cup, because, like breast cancer, that is one of the side effects of low energy in that chakra is breast cancer.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so like filling your soul cup, especially for us here in this group, is so critically important. So that is just
Absolutely.
wonderful. So
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what was your favorite tip? I'm kind of torn between the soul cup and the deep breathing myself.
Honestly,
Maybe they're
for
both the
me,
same.
the soul cup is very important to me.
Yeah.
Right. But I really think the other one for me would be honoring my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
because I now understand what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I understand it. So then it's easy. It is a yucky process.
Yeah.
It is not fun.
Yeah. No.
But it helps me go, okay, I am feeling angry, instead of, I don't know, like before this, when I'd be angry,
Mm-hmm.
I would be wrapped up in the energy and just go through my day and slamming doors and being
Exactly.
miserable and, but now honest to God, it's like, okay, I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I need to know? That is what I ask. What is it that I need to know? So answer doesn't always come right away. So I think that is for me, like the top one for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that is so amazing too, because often when you have, strong emotions and strong feelings, you're having a bad day. A lot of people just reach for distractions.
Yes.
And a way to dull the
chocolate.
Chocolate, wine, whatever, or Netflix, like you turn on the boob tube and you tune it out, but you're not dealing with it. You're not processing anything. So that energy is getting stuck in there and it's trapped in there. And it's,
right.
Eventually it's going to come to no good. So like it's such an amazing tip. Like you have to do it. You have to.
You have to. And that's that being curious and being open to, what, it's not going to be fun. Yeah. But you got to face it in order to clear that energy. And honestly, like I'm in my 50s and I don't have time to keep dealing with all my stuck energy. Mm-hmm. I got stuff to do between now and my next journey, right? So I don't want to stay there. So that has been my, why I've stayed focused on being curious and being open, as much as it's hurt at times. Yeah. Because I want to get through it. But that's me. I want to get through it. I'm sure you've wanted to get through your stuff too with your journey, right? Absolutely. When you want to get through it and you're tired of feeling angry, or you're tired of feeling like guilty and, like you don't fit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everybody hits their wall. Mm-hmm. Yes. With that. Yeah, absolutely. And then when you hit your wall and you're ready to be open, there it is. Exactly. Growth hurts. That's what on earth to do is grow. Yeah. You can't stay the same as human beings. No. We're well, you can, but it doesn't serve you. And joy, happiness, all that kind of stuff. Like there's two ends of the spectrum. You're miserable. Right. The other end of the spectrum is joy. How do you get it? It's going to require some growth. It's going to require some change. And it's not a straight path. It's very up and down. Very sideways, around the corner. Oh my God, it's all over the place. But when we come into this understanding that it's not going to be a straight line and removing that rigid thinking, it's actually a very beautiful journey. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just be gentle. I could not have said this 9 years ago. No, I would not have believed a word. And I would have been like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but I've lived it. And it is a really beautiful journey when we unfold and just let it open the way it needs to open. Well, that's just amazing. And I think we'll wrap it up with that, because that is just perfect.
So thanks everyone for joining live and on the replay.
Yay. Thank you.
And ladies, be sure to click on the link that I put in the description, I think. And if I haven't, I will go back and do that. And grab Candace's free download. It's The Secret to Unlocking Your Body's Wisdom. And Candace, what can I say? Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
I love it. I love chatting and I love sharing my story, and you're amazing. And thank you so much for having me here. And thank you to everyone who watched. And if anybody has questions, they can ask in your group and I would be more than happy to answer them.
Yes, and I will definitely put your contact details as well. They might already be there, as I said, but you know,
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not seeing them, but we'll find them. So
Awesome.
thanks so much for joining us today. I look forward to many more chats in the future.
Awesome.
So, and everyone have a great day, and we will catch you next time.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.